Want to start drafting your own patterns? The easiest way is to start with PDF sewing patterns. Great news, y'all. We are now part of the Hillman-Talk University community. Where you choose to purchase your PDF sewing patterns is totally up to you, but I prefer to use bertastyle.com. If it's your first time drafting your own sewing patterns, start with something simple. And don't forget, there's plenty of free PDF sewing patterns online. I found this super cute shoulder bag that can also be worn as a fanny pack. Now let's download our shoulder bag sewing pattern and print it out. First things first, let's review all of our supplies and see what we need to purchase. Instead of using the jacquard fabric, I'm going to use an African print fabric that I designed. You can do the same. Just be sure that whatever fabric you choose is a medium weight woven fabric. The other supplies can vary as well. Just be sure to stick to the right size and dimensions. Now let's get to my favorite part. Let's prep our patterns. Every great pattern maker needs certain supplies. For this project, you'll need a C-Thru ruler that reads in inches and a pencil. I prefer a mechanical one. Learning how to read a ruler was really difficult for me, but with a C-Thru ruler, I can count the squares and determine my measurement. For pattern pieces A and B, we're going to add 3 8/7" seam allowance on all sides of the pattern. The curved part of the pattern can be a little complex to draft. Take your time, measure 3 8/7" and make small markings all along the contoured part of the pattern. For the next part, we'll need another professional pattern making tool. We can't use a straight ruler to draw a curved line. We need either a hip curve or a French curve to blend and finish our contoured line. Either of those professional pattern making supplies is fine. Another mark of a great pattern maker is making sure that all of your pattern pieces are labeled correctly. Pattern piece A is our back bag piece that we need to cut once on the fold. As our sewing pattern library grows, we have to stay organized. Every pattern piece should be labeled with the name of the design, the specific name of the pattern piece, and the cutting instructions. Repeat the same pattern making process for pattern piece B. Be sure to label your seam allowance along your seam lines, just in case we forget what it is while we're sewing. Now let's learn a few professional pattern making techniques. Just on pattern piece B, let's completely draft our dart by drawing in the dart legs and the center line. On both pattern pieces A and B, extend and intersect all your seam lines. Then, just on pattern piece A, extend your notches to the cut line. This will allow us to carefully cut our notches when our pattern pieces are laid out, pinned, and cut out of our fabric. Now here's a professional pattern making technique that gets a little bit tricky. Let's true our dart. Remember, Your dart is shaped like a triangle. The outside lines are the dart legs, and the line that runs down the middle is the center line. Carefully pinch and crease the center line. We should be looking for a continuous, smooth line that transitions from the edge of the dart into the seam to the left. And as we can see, that's not it. Let's try and fold the dart to the right. And there we have it. A nice, clean, smooth transition from the line on the bottom of the dart into the seam line to the right. Now we must clearly mark the specific side of pattern pieces A and B that we plan to lay out, pin, and align with the fold of the fabric. Based upon my professional experience, you normally wouldn't need seam allowance along the edge of the pattern piece that you plan to cut on the fold. But we're going to go with the instructions, and if we need to, we'll modify the pattern later. As per the instructions, pattern piece C does not require any seam allowance. So we simply need to label the pattern and clearly mark what side of the pattern is going to be cut on the fold. Now that all of our patterns are done, let's carefully cut them out. If you struggle with cutting accurately, like I did, grab a blank piece of paper, a ruler, and a pencil. Draw a few straight lines on the paper, and then practice cutting along those lines. And there you have it. You've drafted your first set of sewing patterns. Okay, y'all, don't forget to join us for part 2, where we lay out, pin, and cut our shoulder bag pattern out of fabric. And don't forget, we're now part of the Hillman Talk University community.